Right, she's there. She's in, and
We are in.
I'm in a little hot desk pod today in Edinburgh.
Uh-huh.
So I'm setting the scene for you all. Visualize my little pod.
Actually, funny you say that about watching. I had a girl approach me after the show at the weekend, and we were talking and whatever, and then she messaged me on Instagram saying, "I thought I recognised you. I've watched all of yours and Steph's videos on YouTube," and I was like, because you sort of forget, don't you? Like we've said
Yeah,
before, you listen to pods and you really familiarize with those people, and then when you meet them in real life, you're like, well, I know your whole life.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And actually, on that note, I'm going to slide the door of my little pod. 1 second. That's better. So now I don't have the big scary male voices in the background. Yeah, I know it's crazy because all of I actually had somebody reach out the other day saying about the YouTube videos and all because we did so many on there and there's so many really, really good ones. And I'm still loading these up sporadically when we do them. So they are there to watch if you want to see our glorious faces on here. But yeah, it's all about Sarah today, guys. Well, Sarah, I'm going to hand over to you. Sarah has just competed for the first time 2022. Woo!
It's
How
that
are you feeling?
it's that really weird, surreal feeling. Like we've said before, countless times on the pod, after a show, you think that you're going to be, because you've done a carb load, like you've injected some foods, and you feel like that's going to replenish your whole prep. And
Yeah,
initially, you compete, you're full of adrenaline, hopefully you've got family and friends there and what have you. And then the next day, you're still sort of living on those vibes. And then the
yeah,
Monday, you wake up at home and you think, oh, it's a normal Monday again. Did that just happen?
yeah, yeah. What just happened? I mean, it's such a whirlwind. I said to Sarah when we came on here, like, she was saying how much you forget how you feel post a show. And it's just that culmination of, yeah, thinking about what's just happened, reflections, almost reliving it through your head. But then you wake up and your body's just sore
Mm.
and you're a bit fatigued, more fatigued than normal, like you've been hit by a bit of a bus. And then you're recalibrating all your thoughts to then either go again, the sticky bit in between shows, or you're thinking about your, recalibration and moving into the next goal or the next phase. But for you, it's of course the sticky bit in between shows. It's for so many of my guys as well at the moment.
Yeah, I was saying to Matt on our morning walk this morning, like you can see exactly why people would go into that post-show sort of binge type behavior and those thought processes of just wanting to eat everything, because I woke up and I was so hungry, more hungry than I've been the whole prep,
Yeah.
because of that peak, you get the carbohydrates, you refuel the body, and the peak is just that, you're trying
Yeah.
to get to your best for the show, you perform, and you get that massive dump of adrenaline. And
Hmm.
then I was saying to him, if I didn't have the Arnold's in 6 weeks, I can see why you would just wake up and want to go for breakfast. Then it's like, oh, what's for lunch, what's for dinner? And because nothing's off limits, as it were, depending
Hmm.
on how you sort of structuring your reverse out and your off season, you could easily just go really into that and go ham, because the
Hmm.
goal has been removed, you've done your show, and no matter what you're placing, you're still like, oh, okay, well, nothing's off limits in your mind at times. So it
Yeah.
also reminded me of that thought process as well. It'd be so easy to do that. So yeah, I feel like, people that listen that have done a show, and even if maybe they competed at the show I was at, it's trying to remember you get that adrenaline effect, and you've got to try and manage it and put things in place to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I did a community call with my team on Thursday night about this as well, about making conscious decisions when you're in a physiological state of, you hunger or genuine, there is a chemical reaction going on in the body when you have had an increase of food through your peak week, but you've also maybe manipulated salt. You've also maybe manipulated your sodium, with the water, with some natural, or if you're an assisted athlete, other usage of trying to remove water as well. So you've got like a whole ton of different things going on in the body. And then you eat foods off plan, which are most likely going to be the higher in fat content, higher in sugar content, nice, yummy foods that you
Yeah,
love.
all the
And
saturated fats.
yeah, all the saturated fats, which hit all those, if you think of like your fat stores as like they're little greedy monsters, right? And think of them with like big cheesy cheeky faces, like, oh, I absolutely love all this. And they are just sending you signals like, eat more, this is good, you know? That's your fat stores, and that's ghrelin, and that's sending those hormones and chemicals to your brain for your brain receptors to pick them up and go, okay, I'll go and feed you more because I think you're my friend, but you're not. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's like this, you're then going through this kind of horrible dichotomy because the more you eat, the more you feel good, but then you have crashes, your insulin sensitivity is all over the place. And it really does take around a week or 2 weeks post any show if you've gone, you know, you said go ham, you know, if you've gone overboard, to really get your body's water balance back to normal, your hormone functioning back to kind of a semi like, okay, I can make conscious, proper decisions. But I think everybody in their first show struggles with this. It's
yeah,
so common. And then we take stock and go, that happened. And just like I was saying to the girls on Thursday night, what are we going to do next time around to make conscious decisions before we go to the show so that you can manage that fallout post show a lot more positively? So
yeah,
it's smart. It's deciding maybe I'm going to go and have one nice meal off with my family and friends and a breakfast. Done.
yeah, yeah. And it's
Rather
nice as
than,
coaches to talk about before, isn't it? Like to prep.
yeah,
It's almost like with bodybuilding, you've got, especially if you compete, you've got the prep for the show, but then a week before that, you start talking about what's happening after the show.
yeah,
And
exactly.
even like sowing seeds months before, but then it gets to that real talk stage. And then like I still checked in with Tom today, and in essence, after a show, you are going to be holding some water, you're
Yeah,
going to be, doing your check-in photos, even holding the poses for that. You're like, this is hard because you've just done, peak week, there's more posing because Tom come and stayed at mine, so we were doing posing a couple of times a day, and
yeah,
you're knackered from that. And then to do the check-in this morning, it was more like well, we're back to the routine, we're back to adherence, let's keep that going. And we still had our call, which we in
yeah,
essence we didn't need to do as such, but he was like, it's important for me to know how you feel and for me to check in with you and for us to continue as we normally would and keep it normal.
yeah. Absolutely. Like getting back on plan is the absolute best way to manage that, whirlwind. Have your evening off, your day off, but get back on your plan. And I mean that just from a perspective of even if your goal is not to compete again, you need to get back onto that plan for routine to allow water balance to drop and for you just to kind of regain your mental strength, like for you to regain balance here. Because if one day rolls into two, rolls into three, rolls into four, by the end of 1 week off plan, when you've been institutionalized for potentially up to 6 months, maybe more,
Yeah,
it's a recipe for disaster. So it is very much about get back onto your plan, focus on drinking lots of water, and then communicate with coach, communicate with other members of your team so that you are just being open about what's going on for you. So therefore you can manage it just that much better overall.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And it does come with experience. Like, as we know, every season you do this, it gets a little bit easier because you know how you're going to feel. But
Yeah,
still, like we said right at the start, you do forget how, I guess, the intensity of how that feels fatigue wise. And, your body is just struggling to even, I have to walk up the stairs to go to the toilet. And I'm like, oh God, I've got to walk up
yeah,
the stairs again.
mm-hmm,
And you keep putting it
mm-hmm.
off, and you're like, even to put one foot in front of the other, it sounds a little bit drastic, but it is hard, so much harder than normal today. And I'm here for it. Like I said to Tom, it's cool, I can manage it, but you really do need to pace yourself and give yourself that, steady return back to however you're going to do this, whether you're going back into a show or whether you're going into your reverse. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter. You're always going to feel a dump of all of those emotions, but also that full-on fatigue that really does hit.
Yeah, and I think, when you get past that like point where you've maybe had your blowout and you're back into sort of a routine, etc., there's like a residual, how do I explain it? There's like a residual film on your body which takes quite some time just to get rid of. And some of that is just cortisol and stress, because you get over that little hump of the immediate, you maybe stop guilt tripping yourself, you maybe get back on plan. But then the next thing that creeps in is, I don't look like I did. I don't look as good as I am. I'm now moving on to maybe another contest and I feel like I'm still nowhere further forward. And you start to kind of almost manifest like I'm not as good as I was mentality.
For sure.
And it's sort of like a weird funk that kind of comes over. And I think it's like the pressure of, it's the elation of what you've just achieved. And then you sort of think, right, I want to go away and get better from this, no matter what the result was. Maybe it was like you, Sarah, where you used this particular qualifier as a stepping stone to the proper peak, like of where you're going.
Yeah.
And that's a strategy a lot of us like coaches use. But then you might have also been a competitor who's just done extremely, extremely well, maybe won their show, and they're huge high levels of elation, loved it, amazing. Now moving on because they love it so much, want to go in and to do the next event. But then now they're second guessing themselves. Like
Yeah.
they're just thinking, oh my God, can I do that again? I don't think I look as good. And that's really important, where a coach has to come in and almost break that down and rationalize with the client and go, no, look, we're on track here.
Yeah.
Weight's dropping back off. You're back on routine. You're back on plan. And here's the strategy for the next however long until that event. And you need to almost map. I find that mapping it out with quite a lot of my clients really helps. Like, this is where we're going to be for that next show. Then this is what we're going to do after that. So there's like a longer term approach to this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot. So much of this is psychology, and then some of it is body is trying to adapt to all of this crazy stuff you're doing. You can't expect your body to respond normally when you're taking it to these levels of lean. It literally can alter every day with heat, with sleep, poor sleep, with food intake, with all the things we've spoken about many times before. You can see extreme changes within the body on a day-to-day basis, and it's really important not to get caught up in that, because you're not on show that day. Yeah, like day to day, you're not on stage. You're not on stage that day. So don't think I don't look ready, because that's not the point of that process there.
Yeah.
The point of that process is to get you ready. And so we have to go through all these ups and downs to then eventually get to that point of looking the best for that particular show again.
Yeah, just for that time. And you mentioned there about sleep. Like, my sleep is so erratic, is probably the best word at the moment.
Yeah.
Over the last 3 days, I've probably had maybe 11 or 12 hours sleep, just because I'm just waking up and just laying there. And it is the effects of the prep, but it's not functional. At this point, I'm not a healthy person, as it were.
No.
And it's like, you almost, when I say it, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't say that, because I don't want to be negative about the sport and what we're doing and what have you, but it's not healthy. There's, in peak week, going to the toilet's really difficult. Like, all of the normal functions that normal bodies do, it shuts off. The menstrual cycle is disrupted amongst a lot of female athletes. The sleep, I think, is one of the biggest things, because I don't know about you, but probably from 4 to 6 weeks out, like, you don't know what a good night's sleep feels like.
Yeah, I 4 to 6 weeks out, sometimes even earlier than that. And I mean, there's a few different reasons for why sleep will be affected, but I mean, just from working with people over time, I think the most common reason is, and just to break this down simply, so it's sort of due to your metabolism running so fast, your hunger wakes you up. So a lot of the time, because your metabolism is really like, and you won't realize this, but just from a sort of a chemical, again, going back to just a mechanical perspective, you are in a deficit. Body is trying to find energy from somewhere. So when metabolism is kind of searching around, I'm going to use my little terminologies again, visualizations, like metabolism through your body is like searching around, where in the body can I find this energy from? I've run out of my carbohydrates, so where am I going to take it from next? oh, I'll go and nibble away at some of this protein here. And then that's where you start to, like, you obviously have a bit of muscle tissue loss if this is inevitable in natural competitors, not so much in assisted, but you might run around the body and go, okay, she's run out of carbs. I want to go eat away at some of that fat. Now, your fat, obviously, we're trying to lose and drop fat across the contest prep phase, but you're hungry, and metabolism is really volatile in your body.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the time I find that sleep is extremely affected because you're just hungry. You're waking up like with pangs. You're waking up, and the body is telling you, go eat or go do something to help me sustain the sleep, because even sleep isn't helping at the moment for body. So things like that, I always say, like, strategies to use are maybe go and watch 10 minutes of TV and try and help yourself fall asleep, or go and read, put a meditation on, or read something that will just help you fall back. I know it's easier said than done, but metabolic disruption in sleep is huge, absolutely huge. And sometimes there's not a lot we can do about it. We've got to just kind of persevere and not stress about it, because if you stress, cortisol's higher. So we have to kind of de-stress about not sleeping.
It was really weird as well, because like I think doing this so many times, I sort of, when I wake up, I don't lean into that hunger too much. I know it's like my body's crying out for food, but it's cool, pace it out, try and chill, go through some sort of meditation or what have you. But last night it was really strange. I woke up and like I was in this sort of alternative universe almost, and my first thought was go and have some food, and it was like 1:30 a.m, and I was like, what? I haven't had these thoughts for like years. And it was such a strange thing. But because after the show we actually went to a Turkish place, and Tom said, he was like, we're gonna just have like a chicken shashlish, some boiled rice and a side salad. And I was like, oh god, like I've got another show. I don't feel ready to do that. And he was like, it's mainly to do, go and see your friends and family, and there's nothing wrong with having some grilled chicken, some rice, and a nice big side salad. And and I was saying to Matt this morning on that walk, normally you would go and have, I always like a burger and chips, just because that's my, I like to have that post show. It's
it's your thing.
Yeah, it's very satisfying. And I was like, well, actually, I didn't do any of that. So those sort of processes with the body. And yesterday I went back on plan with a bit more carbs. Today I'm back on the digging carbs. And I haven't had any of that let off. And it's not that I want it, but my body's going to be thinking, oh, okay, you've had more carbs over the last 4 days, let's continue that. But when you have got those back-to-back shows, and for me 6 weeks is the longest I would have done between shows. And I remember when I did body power back when it was a thing, I had a qualifier, and then 3 weeks later had body power. And Stephen said to me, he was like, you've qualified already for the British final, so we don't need to do body power anymore. And I was like, I want to compete at body power. And he said to me, look, I need to tell you, it's going to be hard. These 3 weeks are going to be hard. And I was like, no, it's cool. And it was hard.
Yeah, it's hard. That shifting between shows is super hard. It is, because it's like, without maybe even realizing, you tell yourself, like, after you've done the first one, like, yay, I've done it, I can chill. And then it's like you love it so much, you have that want to go and do it again. But body is saying something different, and that's why it's so much harder, because body wants to stop there. Brain's like, I loved it, want to do it again. So then you're having to will your way through that next block, and everyone goes, oh, it doesn't feel the same as the way it's felt motivated up to this first one. That's because that initial excitement and motivation, etc., is just driving you towards that. Then you get the result, then you have all these floods of like, okay, that goal is completed. And it takes a really hard, it's not, I suppose what I'm trying to say is that bit between shows is not the same motivation as the first one. It's just a different motivation. That motivation has to shift into, I have proven to myself I can do this. I have got the tools in my bank to be able to execute this next little bit. I know now what to expect. So the shine of that has been taken off, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm now going to do this next show, but the motivation has to be because I want to prove I can improve myself, and I want to see if I can collect more data to better my competitive experience, to then, you know, continue to grow as an athlete. Because it's not you're no longer maybe just a first timer that's completed a show. You're
Yeah.
now an enthused athlete
Yeah.
moving into the next athletic part of your journey. So it's shifting the mindset to something else. And we need to harness what that is. Like, we need to actually genuinely think, what is this motivation between the show for you now? Because the first kind of, whether it's returning back to contest season like yourself, or whether it's doing your first show, that's done.
Yeah.
So now what? Where's the mind now? And that's what we have to kind of manifest.
Yeah, and that's what, when I did my post on Instagram, because I always like to do sort of a post as to how I got on at shows, and like it the words came very easily, and it was the fact of Tom had prepped me psychologically for what we were going to do. He said, you're not going to bring your best look to this show because I really want you to come in and, you know, stand out at the Arnold's. And like I said to you, you know, I've never ever approached it like that before. Normally every show you go in and you feel your best and you want to win, you know, that is my mindset normally. And, you know, it was a very strange place to be in, but I trust Tom, and I let that override that mind warp that I was having before the show. And then, you know, I got to the show and I thought, do you know what, this is almost a test as well. Is bodybuilding, you know, every time I go back to stage, is bodybuilding for me, is it worth what you put into a prep, etc.? And the answer is always the same, but I almost have that process before. And I was backstage, and, you know, like we say about empowering other athletes, you know, making friends potentially, and still having your tunnel vision, but having those moments of conversing with other athletes that you catch a vibe with, and it's, you know, really good interactions. And I did just that, and I had my family and friends there and everything else. And I thought, you know, you don't put 16 weeks in to then go to the show and go, oh, okay, well, I've got to do this just to qualify. It was, I'm going to present my best. And, you know, there's been times in the past where I'm like, is my posing okay? And all of these things that contribute to your performance. But actually, like, I felt my best I ever had in that regard. Like, and when I got the feedback from the judge, we approached the head judge, and he actually spent, you know, 5 minutes with us, and it was very intentful and gave some really good feedback. And it was like, I actually feel really good about this experience, and really turned it around. And it was, I guess, that going into the show and that outlook of, I am going to enjoy this no matter what, no matter how I feel about where my physique is at and the bigger picture here, I'm going to enjoy it. And it made such a difference as to how it could have gone and how I could feel right now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is those little moments that give you a really, really good experience. I think from running WMBF myself, there's elements to the show, the athletic experience that you get post-show, that are very important. The feedback, the understanding, you know, where you came, why certain people placed, maybe why certain people didn't. And we're seeing that a little bit more now across some federations, which I think is good, because it's not, you know, we're all growing. It's not acceptable anymore for a federation, I think, to just be, you know, you pay 100 and something odd quid to go and participate in this event, and then it's a see you later. You know, I think that lacks just complete, you know, progression in the industry. But those things help, and they are really vital. And then explaining and sitting with your coach and analysing, you know, where were you strong, where were you weak, what do we need to do moving on forward, you know, managing the expectation of, you might have won or you might have done really well. That doesn't mean to say that it will happen again. We can't rest on our laurels. You have to focus on being a better athlete continuously. You might not have won. You might have taken a slightly lower placing or maybe not place at all, and that's awesome as well. That's great because we've had our first show experience. You've brought all this incredible package together. We look at the strengths and weaknesses again, we look at leveling up, we move forwards to the next goal, and so it's all a work in progress, and it goes back to that process, not outcome. The outcome is part of the process to analyze the situation, not to get too overly emotional about it, although we do, and it's natural because we all want to win at the end of the day. Everyone wants to win, but it's kind of sitting down and going, right, why am I doing it again? What's the purpose of this? Where am I going with it? And doing it all over again and thinking about the journey ahead.
I've
And
really
certainly,
enjoyed that sort of exactly what you just summarized there. I really enjoyed that process with Tom because he's so involved with it, and he explains everything to the minutiae, what we're doing, why we're doing this, and
yeah,
like it's super cool because I think that as well contributes heavily to how I feel about not placing, because it's like there's a bigger picture here. And he was like, today we were gathering feedback. I want to know where you fit in this federation. I've never competed with him as my coach, and like it was so constructive and valuable. It's almost like I felt like it was an exploration of my physique and where it can go, and it's fueled me even more for the Arnolds, rather than thinking, oh, I didn't place, I haven't done well enough. I don't actually feel that negative about how that could potentially have affected me. When you have one shows and then you go in and you don't place, it is hard, but
yeah,
there's a bigger picture, and he's explained everything to me. I'm like, this is quite cool actually, because now if I can make really big improvements to my physique in the next 6 weeks, how much of an impact that could have on the when the judges see me up there again, to see that I've taken their feedback, to see my face again from giving me that feedback and then going, oh, okay, she's done exactly what we said. That could be a very good experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the ever evolving art of being a bodybuilder. I think you have to go into bodybuilding knowing that this is a subjective sport. You have to go into it knowing that you can't be entitled to walk in and think I'm the winner before you've even gone there. I mean, you have to be resilient enough to take a loss, and you have to be balanced enough to take a win as well, because you can't go on and just start to become this kind of ego-driven, non-humble sportsman as well. So there's so much involved with it, and I've seen it grow people beyond any capability, and I've seen it completely ruin some people as well. And it's who you have in your space, the people you are involving yourself with, the coaches you're involving yourself with. We often see a lot of people, we were talking about this before, like you see a lot of people everyone goes to a coach for a different reason. But I think like there are some coaches who are extremely heavily involved potentially with a federation itself, and they are running their business not from a ethical standpoint, let's put it that way. And so a lot of athletes think, oh, if I'm with said coach, I'll do super well. And that's something that has been since time immemorial, will always be there. But I think a lot of people have to go through that to realize actually this person, the coach, doesn't actually care so much about the athlete's journey. They care about the accolade, the kind of the other side of it all, which I'm generalizing, and I don't, you have to always be, I think, what's the word? Counteractive. You can't just say it's all shit. You have to also look at kind of the other side of it as well.
And it happens in all sports, doesn't it?
It happens in all sports. You see it in all areas of sporting history, and that's fine for some people. But then I've seen a lot of disasters come off the back of that as well. So it's having a coach in your corner that will really help you evolve as an athlete, but also evolve and harness this experience in a positive way. Because let's be honest, like we go back to this, most women go into this industry and they maybe have 2-3 years in it max, if that, and then they go off, and it's been something they've done and they've enjoyed it and they've moved on with their life. For very few of us females, it's a long-term thing, and there's a lot of reasons for that, which I'm sure we could cover in another
Yeah.
another podcast.
Yeah.
Reasons why you stay in this, but the positives and negatives of staying in this industry. It's a hard industry to be in. Very hard.
It is. You do, I think, as well, because we're both open and honest about our own experiences, and you know, when we've had accolades in the sport, to then return to the stage, you know, that there is, I like the pressure, but there is pressures to that, and you know, no matter what, people are going to ask you how you got on, and there's this ramp up to the show, and you know, it can be, I can see how it would become detrimental to people, and how that could really, you know, put on you after the show. You don't even want to really look at your phone up when you come off stage. I don't know if you get the same thing, but you're like,
oh, it's like, it's total overwhelm. Like you're it's weird. It's a very weird thing, because I think in that sense, a lot of people that know you, and it's like, it's weird. You get a lot of support when you're doing something.
Yeah.
And you might be deep in off season doing your thing and nobody really cares. And then you come back around here and you're like, oh, look at all these people giving me lots of love. And it's great. Don't get me wrong. Everyone likes to see what people are up to. It's cool. But you know, like, somebody said something to me yesterday I thought was really good. She was saying, how did she phrase it? She said, like, not respecting your peers in this industry, or speaking bullshit, sticks.
Yeah.
And you remember it. So like, you see people come and go in this industry, and you see people maybe with you, not with you, they then move on to other things, or you see people who are really into your journey and then aren't. And this is just me calling bullshit here, but like, be real. Always, even if it means the truth stings to someone. You need to be frank in this industry, because the bullshit gets you nowhere, and it travels quick, and then you never know when you might need to come back to someone, or speak to someone, or meet someone at a show, or somebody who's done your class before that you've maybe shared a stage with, or whatever. And if anything has sort of transpired, it's just not good. Yeah, it just comes out. So you just have to you have to respect your competition. I suppose I'm generalizing across all avenues of the industry here, but you have to respect your competition. You have to respect your peers. People, even if you don't really like them from a personality point of view, they might have still done the same thing you have. You still got to respect that. Do you know what I mean? Like, standing on stage, you and I might not get on right, and we're standing on next stage to each other, but I can look over at you and go, well, she's still done the work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I met a really lovely girl at Tannin, and then on show day we spent a few moments together, and she was like, well, you've got to enjoy it. It was her first show. And then she went, calm as a bitch. And I was like, actually, yeah,
it is. And I think the thing as well is that you've got to in bodybuilding, you've got to stick so strongly to your morals and your values. And that is the only way that you can kind of, I think, in my opinion, survive how hard this is. Because bodybuilding is so freaking hard. It's not easy in any way. And if it was, everyone would do it. And that's why I have so much respect for all of like how passionate I am about my guys, like my team, when I see what they are able to achieve. And I know how hard it is. And they're starting to see all the areas of the industry, and they're starting to understand it, and they see the positives and they see the negatives, and they're learning about themselves, and they're seeing themselves in the best shape that they've ever seen themselves in. But they also know how bloody hard it is to get there. Like, I have so much respect for that. And morally, ethically, it's my job as a coach to help them navigate this very difficult sport. It's very hard.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, the main emphasis on that is the self-critique that builds from a physique-based sport, because you are exposing yourself fully on stage. You know, you couldn't expose yourself any more in life, really, could you? You know, you've got hardly any clothes on, and you've got a panel of judges looking at you, and you're amongst other physiques, like you say, everyone's done the work. that is, you know, ultimate exposure of yourself, both mentally and physically, because you then get feedback and, you know, you go on to do whatever you do after your show. It's massive. You couldn't expose yourself anymore. So I think
And
sometimes
then
you
you're
get that.
also exposing, yeah, well, completely, but then you're also exposing yourself to a lot of judgment, not just on the stage, but it might be backstage, it might be in the actual venue itself, it might be,
On social
yeah,
media.
it's yeah, on social media, exactly. It, like we've said this hundreds of times in the podcast, you've got to have a backbone to do this sport. Like, you've got to have a backbone, you've got to be resilient, you've got to be strong, you've got to be ready for the ups and downs that come with it. And if you've got people in your corner who you can be very open with, and I mean super, super open, like you can pick up the phone to your coach, or you can pick up the phone to one of your team members and just go, this was hard, I don't know how to deal with this aspect of it, then you will be able to just have good mentors, good people that are actually going to talk to you about it straight.
Yeah.
And so that you can then go, right, I get that, I understand that, I'm not going to use my emotional brain here, I'm going to use my rational brain about this. Because I think I see a lot of emotional decisions and a lot of emotional kind of talk over social media, or certainly within the bodybuilding realm. I'm sure you have as well.
Yeah, I find that it then becomes a lesson rather than an internal festering of negative thought processes.
Yeah, that's the perfect way of saying it. Yeah,
because otherwise, you know, that internal talk, it sometimes it becomes so overpowering. You don't know what to do with yourself. But having Matt now, like, we have talks every day on our walks and whatever, and it's just made prep so much more enjoyable, because once I offload those thoughts, they're almost gone because we've spoken about it. And then, you know, when another thought comes up, we speak about it again, and it's super, super cool.
It is, like, I know that a lot of my females talk with each other across, like, WhatsApp, Instagram, you know, they share things, they're talking, they're waking up doing their cardio every morning, and they're like having their wee coffee chats on Instagram, etc. And I love that, because I just think that's what you need. You just need some people. You don't need tons, you just need some people who get you, that are on your wave, that are maybe doing the same goal, or maybe have really are able to really wisely speak about a particular topic, and help you just work things out for you. Yeah, and I think as well, like, we all care so much, like, we, you know, I'm guilty of this. I care so much about doing the right thing, and it's tripped me up sometimes, you know, like, I care so much about being a really kind of honest, call it as I see it, be frank, be upfront, kind, sort of treat people how I want to be treated, even if I find that the other person's being obnoxious or rude or whatever else. I've always been that person, like, doing the right thing. And sometimes I can care too much, you know, and it's tripped me up, where I'll be sitting there and I'll be thinking, this is really bothering me. Like, I'm really bothered about this. And sometimes I have to literally take a step out myself and go, well, I'm bothering about it because I care, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But when is that overstepping the mark, and actually I'm allowing that to become something like I'm then internally affecting myself? I'm saying, well, it's obviously happened because I'm shit. It's obviously happened because I'm not good enough. It's obviously happened because, you know, I've not got X, Y, Z. And you do this horrible internal sort of, I'm very bad for that. I completely negatize, you know, things. And I've got much better over the years, but now I've got like a strategy that I use for myself to write it down, write the thought down, look at it, reframe it, and go, no, like, there's the positives in that sentence, this is the positives in the thought, I do care, that's great, but I also can box it off now, and I can move on.
But
a
of
great
course,
book.
that relates,
I was going to say,
physique-based sport, doesn't it?
oh, hugely. I think the nature as well, when you work with people and you care so much about people, like, inevitably you want everybody to do well, feel good. You don't want them to ever not feel good. You want to take their troubles and help them solve them. That's the nature of I think, helping people, you know, that you just are always on the lookout to make sure that they're having the most transformative, positive experience that they can do. But I think there is also that you have to realize that you can't protect all the time. You can't be there when someone falls. Sometimes they have to fall to figure out, for us to then help get back up and go, okay, this is where we're going with everything. And then I was going to say there, but you know, that book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Oh, have I read that book? I have read that book. I must be literally like peeling at the corners now. I've read that book so many times, and it's a funny, light-hearted way of getting back centered to yourself sometimes. And I read it when I overthink. And so if anyone wants to go read it. I recommend it wholeheartedly.
We don't want to give a fuck.
Yeah, it just helps you remind yourself like what to care about and what not. If you're sitting ruminating in your bedroom about what somebody said on social media about XYZ for too long,
Yes.
you need to read that book, because it'll help you. It's remembering what's, you know, what in the grand scheme of things is worth fretting over. And sometimes when what's not, and when we realize that actually there's something there you can look at within your own character to help you get a little bit more resilient, figure out, okay, you know, that in the grand scheme doesn't bother me. So I'm actually going to park that over here, move on with my life over here. And so I think when we're talking about in between shows and things like that, what can we do to help ourselves? A lot of this is reminding yourself what the hell you're capable of, because you've just done it. So you can do this again.
That when you were saying that, I was thinking, this is exactly how I feel about the Arnolds. You know,
Yeah.
I don't have time to dwell on what happened at the weekend. Got the qualification. Now I need to crack on. I can't have a few days where I'm stressed about it, and then I'm going to promote, you know, holding water, not sleeping even more, and the stress and how that's going to affect me, and how that would potentially use a whole, even one day. Every single day counts now. And it's like, look, you've done it. Let's move on. And it's like that across the whole of life, you know, not just as a bodybuilder. You've got to build that resilience to be able to deal with these things and to be able to improve as a person. And, you know, like when we spoke with Rob about growth mindset, it is, you know, you can't let things drain too much of your energy in order to move forward with your life and, you know, be your best self, as it were, in inverted commas.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because you can spot the people like on social media. When we're talking about like people, you can spot the people on social media who are really kind of warranting that. But if you look at people on social media who do have that kind of mindset,
Yeah.
and they speak about it openly, that kind of mindset, or maybe their posts resonate in that sort of way, just take a look at what they've achieved.
Yeah.
Like, take a little gander through their Instagram, or take a little look at their bio, or if you think, oh, I quite like this person's mentality, take a look at what they've achieved. I can almost guarantee you 9 times out of 10, that person has had some serious successes in their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when we're all really interested in the gossip and the drama and the shit that goes on, you know, because it's a bit like a real life Love Island on social media for bodybuilding. You know what I mean? It's like
that they didn't place, they won, they did this, they did that.
They did
You
this.
really have to just bring it back to reality. You know, I'm walking along and I'm thinking, I feel pretty bad today, you know, some of those beat up days. And then I'll see someone, you know, in a wheelchair or something, and I think, fucking hell, pull your head out your ass. This is a choice. And like we say, it's meant to be hard. You're trying to get to stage condition, and it gives you that moment of like, there's people out there suffering from, you know, it's not out their own free will. We're actually doing this by choice.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I mean, I think as well, like the looking out for the drama and the gossip and the stuff and all of that thing, you know, you got to question like what are you feeding off?
Yeah.
Because if you're so keen to know like what someone who's literally never done a show before but is doing a show but is really open about doing a show, but then I don't know, something goes tits up or whatnot, and you're interested in seeing the comments that other people are writing, and you're maybe scrolling through and doing all that, and before you know it, you've spent 30 minutes looking at somebody's potential fuck ups or potential reasons for why they've done a certain thing. I know we're all curious, but I think some of it becomes actually toxic for people.
For sure.
And you're spending too much time focused on what other people are doing in this industry and not seeking out the people that are actually going to help you really become great in this industry.
Yeah.
And that's like, there's lots of different people in the bodybuilding world, but do, like, especially someone from experience, and I know you are as well, Sarah, that, you know, I started in 2012 where social media was hardly even a thing. Instagram had literally just got off the ground, and I'm not even joking you, like the photos were so crap. Like where it is from there to now is, it's just night and day. And the same things applied then. And I, way back then, made a conscious decision to start following what really built me up, but or lessons I could learn, or things I could learn, or educational people, or even as some athletes, I just love their physiques, right?
Yeah.
And then anytime somebody in that feed would start shifting or changing, or that sort of narrative that I like to see on my feed start to change, I just get rid. Doesn't matter, even if they were like on stage with me next week. It's not serving me. I need to get rid of it. I'm not interested in seeing whether someone fails. That's a horrible thing for me to think. I don't want to see someone fail. I don't want to see and watch and see like, oh, is this person gonna, you know, they've done this or made this decision, what's going to happen next? You need to protect your energy, and you need to think like, what would I want for people to watch of me? So emulate and be what you want to be, and get rid of the rest, guys. Like, if you need to mute someone, mute someone. If you're in between shows and you're freaking out about somebody turning up at your next event, or
I was going to say that, yeah.
you know, just turn that off. Just mute it. We've got these great little things we can do on Instagram now, where you can hide their story, hide their feed, maybe completely get rid of them altogether, block them. Who cares? Like, just get them out of your world, because unless they know you personally, there's no point in that saturating any part of your mindset whatsoever.
Yeah, just bring your tunnel vision to bringing your best. Like, this is your journey, you know, no matter the outcome, if you can see it for what your reason is to do it in the first place, and get into your show and performing at your best, it is what it is. You know, the saying of 2022, it is what it is.
It is what it is. And like, you know, we, all of us guys, like people that have been in the industry for a really long time, people don't seem to realize, but we all know each other. Like, I speak to coaches that I've known for the best part of 15 years.
Yeah.
I speak to new coaches now and collaborate with them on different things. I'm building a networking relationships, building up stuff behind the scenes to better my journey as an athlete and as a career woman and as everything else. So people often get all caught up in themselves, and then they'll out of whatever reason will do something or say something or get all stressed about something. You kind of think, just chill and realize, like, the right people are going to help you, and the ones that aren't, doesn't matter. Just get rid of them all. Like, get rid of them all. It doesn't matter. Just do you, stay in your own lane, be sensible, and stick to your plan, and you'll
remember,
be
it's a subjective sport. It's a subjective sport.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You can go from one show to a show a week later. You might place first and then come fifth. You haven't done anything wrong. Well, I'm saying that some people do, obviously, like you say, don't stick to the plan and whatever. But if you've done your plan and executed to the letter, you haven't done anything wrong. You've just been in front of a different panel of judges. So this needs to come from an internal reason for you to want to compete in the first place, and know that when you go into a show, if you can stand there with your head held high. Tom actually said to me once, and it always stuck with me, if you cheat on your diet during prep, if you win, you still think, if I hadn't have cheated that day, could I have looked even better? Or if you came third, fifth, didn't place, if I hadn't have had that cheat meal, could I have got better? And I was like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense, because I haven't cheated once. I don't deviate from the plan, exactly like you, Steff. Like, that's not how we roll in a prep. So I stood there on stage, and I've done literally everything I could.
Yeah, and that's great. And you know, I definitely think that comes from experience as well. But it's, you're right. It's just like, you've just got to think, like, if you wrote on a piece of paper all the things that come with bodybuilding, right? You, your decision, your coach, your plan, your teammates, your bodybuilding friends on Instagram, your inspirations on social media, the toxic things that maybe you've seen and you don't like, the federations you've worked in or where you want to go, your goal over here. If you wrote down, if you got like Sarah in the middle, and then wrote a spider graph all the way, like all these little deviations of what bodybuilding is to you. And on one side of it's all the stuff you love about it, and then all the stuff you didn't, or maybe you've seen or you want to kind of think about and analyze. Trust me, like that just doing that is so helpful, because then you can literally go through that other side of it, not the positives, the other side where there may be question marks or curiosities or negativities or toxicities, whatever they are. And you can literally go, I'm going to remove that.
Yep.
And do something about it. I'm going to make peace with that. I'm going to talk to somebody about that. And by then you've got like a strategy for absolutely every outcome. So when you meet it again, you can go back to that little strategy that you had. Well, that hits that box where I'm not willing to let that in. So that profile's out. You know what I mean? It's think of the stuff that you struggle with like the pieces of the puzzle that do work. And if you've got a process and a strategy that helps you get to the stage and navigate through all of this crazy thing called bodybuilding, then have a strategy for all the things that you struggle with through this as well. And talk to people about it, and talk to your coaches and talk to your friends. Because I know that, like, even you and I speak, you know, like we speak about things, and sometimes it's just nice to go, yeah, someone else thinks like that, cool.
Yeah, because you
good.
in normal life you don't really have those, like we have very truthful, honest interactions, you know, on the pod but also outside of the pod about other things, and like I don't have those interactions with anyone else because it is just not, you don't find that connection with a lot of people where, you know, when we've been in the industry for so long, there's a lot of things that, you know, we can talk about, and it's really nice to be able to do that. So for people that are, you know, even back to like first timers that are doing it for the first time, find other first timers, you know, interact with people that can raise you up, and you can have those truthful interactions with, and it's really empowering at times, and it can sometimes just take the edge off those hard days.
Yeah, it can. And you know, if you've got partners as well, I know it's more helpful to speak to people who get it, but if you do have a really supportive partner, or somebody who's maybe outside it that can break things down for you, that's also very helpful, as long as they're obviously supportive and encouraging. But I certainly know, like, you know, I've got a great relationship with my dad, and sometimes when I'm really struggling with something and it's a conundrum in my head, I will literally just explain it to him. And I forget, it's really weird, I forget every time that he really knows how to talk to me.
Yeah.
And so when I open up something with him, I'm almost like going into like, oh, this is so cringe, like I'm having to like explain this, and then he'll say something, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I wish I'd asked you about this like 6 months ago, and I wouldn't have been stressing out about it the whole time in my head. Because there's some people that get you, they click with you, they talk to you in a way that you understand, and sometimes they're out with the scenario of what you're doing altogether. You know, so if you do have a family member or a friend or somebody that you know that's just a very balanced, good level head to help you work something out you're not sure about, that you're going over and over and over, that's very helpful too. So yeah, lean on people, talk, and in the sticky bits, like in between shows, where your head's all over the shop.
Yeah, try not to internalize so much, and if you can, externalize those thoughts so that they don't become too detrimental. And that self-talk, you know, the self-talk wants to be, I'm doing well here, I'm on track, let's go, not I'm not doing well, not ready, and all of those things. You know, you will have them come up. It would be, I'd imagine it'd be quite strange if you didn't have some negative self-talk, but if you can let it out and try and turn it around, it's massive.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know this, like all of our podcasts, they kind of derive into, sort of deviate into like loads of different places, don't they? I don't even know what the title of this one will be. It's like a bit of everything, really. But I think keeping it real is always just opening up about, you know, all areas of this journey that you're on. And the most important thing, like you say, when it's tough in between shows, maybe a post show, staying on track, you just remember that when you have enlisted a coach, it's their responsibility to tell you it straight, and they're hopefully not gonna tell you something that is a complete load of nonsense. They're gonna tell you, here's where you are, it's either we need to do more, we need to do less, or you're bang on and we keep moving. That's sort of where it needs to be. And remember that they're coming at it from a non-emotional perspective. So everything they say to you is not because they're hoping like you'll go away and go, oh, I feel so much better. They're saying it because it is legit what we need to do, because your success is my priority. Or like say with your coach, Sarah, you know, like anyone, that's why we do what we do, to make sure you get the results. So we're never going to rest on our laurels in that front.
Yeah, I love that with Tom. Like, I know he won't blow smoke up my ass unless.
Yeah, I love that as well.
Yeah,
it's important.
There's no point. What is detrimental to us both, you know? And I know if I'm stepping on stage and he's there and he's affiliated as my coach, you know, he's not going to let me do that if it's not for a reason. So I've got full trust in that. So I just go with the flow, you know. Coach's word is the word that I follow.
Exactly. So yeah, so lots of stuff here, but I think the key kind of area we were wanting to discuss was really how you feel, how after that show experience, and all the things that then come off the back of that, and regaining some balance in between, getting back on your plan as quickly as you can, even if it means you're coming off season, just to get your head back so that you can then make pragmatic and sensible, conscious decisions for the next ongoing phase, but also not being scared of the fact that you might not feel the same way as you did pre the first event, because the motivation changes, as we've said, for the next goal. So that's all part of it, and that's okay. Don't get scared of that. That's normal.
I must give a shout out to, I didn't actually catch her name, but in tanning, you know what it's like, you're all in there butt naked, and she said to me, "You're Sarah?" And I was like, "Yeah." She said, "Oh, I listened to your podcast. I must say it's really helped with my whole prep." She did wellness at the and yeah, it was really nice. I came out of tanning and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is so cool." So hopefully he listens, and yeah, it's really nice to get that feedback, because that's what we're here for. So thank you to all of our listeners as always.
Absolutely, and we'll see you for the next one.
Oh yeah, who knows what we will cook up for the
Who knows? Give us some suggestions. Give us some suggestions, guys. Today's been sort of like informative, educational, and a rant. So probably like that's like most of our pods, right? So
love it.
Awesome. Peace out, lovely, and I'll see you in the next one.
See you later.